Commander Reyes stopped directly behind her position, close enough that his voice would carry to the dozen Marines preparing their equipment nearby. So tell me, Recruit Delacroix, where exactly did you learn to handle precision rifles? His tone carried the weight of 23 years in special operations, each word carefully measured to emphasize the absurdity of her claimed qualifications. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Quantico Range, but the heat building in the air had nothing to do with temperature. Corporal Chun paused his scope adjustment to listen, exchanging a knowing glance with Staff Sergeant Nakamura. They had seen plenty of recruits claim advanced training only to wash out spectacularly when faced with real marksmanship standards. Delacroix kept her eyes forward, checking her rifle zero with methodical precision that seemed oddly confident for someone facing interrogation from SEAL Commander. "I trained with various instructors, sir," she replied, her voice steady despite the obvious skepticism radiating from every Marine within earshot. Reyes circled her position slowly, his boots grinding against the gravel with deliberate emphasis. "Various instructors," he repeated, allowing the words to hang in the air like smoke. "That is remarkably vague for someone requesting access to our most challenging long-range targets. Before we continue with this story about proving yourself under pressure, drop a comment and let us know what state you are watching from. Maybe you have witnessed similar displays of quiet confidence in military communities where you live." The other Marines had abandoned any pretense of focusing on their own preparations. Sergeant Torres leaned against his rifle case, arms crossed, waiting for the inevitable moment when another recruit would be exposed as unprepared for elite-level training. Private Williams whispered something to his partner that sounded suspiciously like betting odds. Commander Reyes positioned himself where his voice would reach the maximum number of witnesses. "Our standard qualification requires consistent hits at 800 meters under field conditions. Most Marines with years of experience struggle to maintain accuracy at that distance." He gestured toward the distant targets, barely visible even with magnification. "You are requesting permission to attempt our 1,000-meter challenge on your first day here." The silence stretched until even the range safety officer turned to observe the confrontation. Delacroix finally looked up from her rifle, meeting the commander's gaze with an expression that somehow managed to convey both respect and unwavering confidence. "I understand the distance, sir. I also understand you have concerns about my qualifications." "Concerns," Reyes repeated, his laugh carrying just enough edge to make nearby Marines straighten their postures. "Young lady, I have watched Marine snipers with combat experience miss those targets repeatedly. I have seen SEAL marksmen require multiple attempts to achieve consistent accuracy at that range." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but every word carried across the silent range. "What I have not seen is a recruit with your apparent lack of documented advanced training demonstrate anything beyond basic competency." Staff Sergeant Nakamura cleared his throat and approached their position, clearly concerned about the public nature of this challenge. "Commander, perhaps we should start Recruit Delacroix with our standard 600-meter qualification before moving to extended range work." Reyes held up one hand without breaking eye contact with Delacroix. "She specifically requested the 1,000-meter challenge, Sergeant. I am simply trying to understand the basis for such confidence." He stepped closer, his voice taking on the tone reserved for recruits who needed immediate attitude adjustment. "So I will ask again, Recruit Delacroix, who taught you to shoot with the precision you claim to possess?" The question hung in the morning air like a challenge issued before witnesses. Every Marine on the range had stopped their preparations entirely, sensing that something significant was about to unfold. Delacroix checked her rifle one final time, her movements displaying a familiarity with the weapon that seemed inconsistent with her apparent youth and lack of visible combat experience. Her answer would either justify the commander's skepticism or begin something none of them expected to witness on a routine training day. "My father taught me the fundamentals, sir," Delacroix replied, her voice carrying across the range with quiet certainty. Commander Reyes tilted his head slightly, his expression shifting from professional skepticism to something approaching amusement. Several Marines exchanged glances that clearly communicated their shared assessment of this answer. "Your father," the commander repeated slowly, as if testing the words for their credibility. Corporal Chun couldn't suppress a slight shake of his head, while Private Williams made no effort to hide his smirk. Staff Sergeant Nakamura stepped forward, clearly hoping to defuse what was becoming an increasingly public demonstration of a recruit's overconfidence. "Commander, with respect, perhaps we should focus on the practical evaluation rather than credentials," Nakamura suggested, his tone diplomatic but firm. "We can assess Recruit Delacroix's actual capabilities through standard testing protocols." Reyes waved him off without breaking eye contact with Delacroix. "No, Sergeant, I think this is exactly the conversation we need to have." He gestured toward the distant targets, heat shimmer already beginning to distort the view despite the early hour. "We have Marines here who have spent months learning to compensate for wind drift at extended range. We have marksmen who understand the mathematical precision required for consistent accuracy beyond 800 meters. Sergeant Torres approached their group, unable to resist joining what had become the morning's primary entertainment. "Sir, if I may, most of us train for weeks just to qualify at our standard distances. Even with proper instruction, hitting targets consistently at 1,000 meters requires experience most recruits simply have not had time to develop." "Exactly my point," Reyes said, his voice gaining the edge that made even experienced Marines straighten their postures. He turned back to Delacroix, who had remained remarkably calm throughout the entire exchange. "So tell me, recruit, what kind of shooting did your father teach you that prepared you for military precision marksmanship?" Delacroix adjusted her scope with movements that seemed oddly practiced for someone supposedly learning advanced techniques. "We did a lot of long-range work, sir. Different conditions, various distances. He was particular about consistency and environmental factors." The commander's eyebrows rose slightly. "Different conditions," he repeated, his tone making clear that he found this explanation increasingly inadequate. "Recruit Delacroix, hunting deer in favorable weather is not the same as military marksmanship under stress conditions." Private Williams leaned toward his partner, his whisper carrying farther than intended. $20 says she does not even hit the target backing at 600 meters. His companion nodded agreement, both of them settling in to watch what they expected would be a brief and educational demonstration of overconfidence meeting reality. Commander Reyes walked over to the spotting scope positioned to observe the 1,000-meter targets. "These targets measure 18 inches across, recruit. At that distance, accounting for wind conditions and atmospheric pressure, the margin for error approaches zero." He looked back toward her position, his expression making clear that he considered this entire exercise a waste of valuable training time. "I understand the requirements, sir," Delacroix said, beginning to settle into her shooting position with fluid movements that somehow seemed inconsistent with her apparent inexperience. Her rifle handling displayed a familiarity that caught the attention of several nearby Marines, though none of them appeared willing to revise their expectations. Staff Sergeant Nakamura checked his watch, clearly hoping to move the morning's activities toward more productive training. "Commander, we have a full schedule of qualifications to complete today. Perhaps we should establish some preliminary standards before attempting the extended range work." The commander held up one hand, his attention focused entirely on Delacroix as she completed her position setup. "No, Sergeant, I think we need to address this situation completely." He stepped closer to her position, his voice taking on the tone reserved for teaching moments that would benefit multiple Marines simultaneously. "Recruit Delacroix, I want you to understand something clearly. The Marines you see around you have trained extensively to reach their current skill levels. They have earned their positions through documented performance and proven competency." His voice carried across the range, ensuring that every witness understood the lesson being delivered. The morning sun climbed higher, casting sharper shadows across the range and highlighting the tension that had settled over the entire training area. Every Marine present understood they were witnessing more than a simple qualification attempt. This had become a question of whether confidence could substitute for proper preparation and documented training. Delacroix completed her final equipment checks with the same methodical precision she had displayed throughout the confrontation, seemingly unaffected by the growing audience of skeptical observers preparing to witness what they expected would be a humbling but educational experience. The range officer approached with wind measurement equipment, his expression reflecting the professional concern that had settled over the entire training area. Current conditions show variable crosswinds at 12 to 15 miles per hour, gusting to 20, he announced to Commander Reyes. At extended range, those conditions will significantly impact bullet trajectory. Reyes nodded, using the weather report as another opportunity to emphasize the challenge facing Delacroix. You hear that, recruit? Variable winds at the target area mean constant adjustment for drift compensation. Even experienced marksmen struggle to maintain accuracy when conditions change between shots. He gestured toward the Marines preparing their equipment nearby. These men have trained specifically to handle exactly these kinds of environmental factors. Corporal Chun finished zeroing his rifle and moved closer to observe what had become the morning's primary focus. Sir, if I may, most of us required weeks of practice just to read wind conditions accurately at standard distances. At 1,000 meters, even small miscalculations can result in complete misses. Staff Sergeant Nakamura consulted his training schedule, clearly hoping to find a diplomatic solution to what was becoming an increasingly public confrontation. Commander, we could arrange for recruit Delacroix to demonstrate her skills at progressively increasing distances. That would allow us to assess her actual capabilities without setting unrealistic expectations. The suggestion drew immediate reactions from several Marines who had gathered to watch. Private Williams shook his head, his expression making clear that he considered even graduated testing to be overly generous. Sergeant Torres crossed his arms, settling in to observe what he clearly expected would be a brief but educational demonstration of the difference between claimed ability and actual performance. Commander Reyes studied Delacroix's position, noting details that seemed oddly professional for someone with supposedly limited training. Her shooting stance displayed elements of advanced technique that appeared inconsistent with basic instruction, yet her apparent youth and lack of documented military experience suggested those observations had to be misleading. Recruit Delacroix, let me explain something about precision shooting that your father may not have covered, Reyes said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had witnessed countless overconfident Marines learn difficult lessons. Military marksmanship requires more than hitting targets under ideal conditions. We demand consistent accuracy under stress, in adverse weather, with time constraints and hostile conditions. Delacroix made minor adjustments to her scope, her movements displaying a familiarity with the equipment that several Marines found noteworthy. I understand the differences between recreational and military shooting, sir, she replied, her voice maintaining the same steady confidence that had characterized her responses throughout the confrontation. Do you really? The commander asked, his tone making clear that he doubted her comprehension of the challenges she was attempting to undertake. Because what I see is a recruit with minimal documented training requesting access to our most demanding qualification standards on her first day of advanced instruction. The range officer checked his equipment again, providing updated wind readings that emphasize the increasing difficulty of the conditions. Winds holding steady at 15 miles per hour, with gusts approaching 22. Visibility remains good, but atmospheric pressure is dropping slightly. Sergeant Torres moved to a position where he could observe both Delacroix's shooting stance and the distant targets. Commander, I have been shooting competitively for 8 years, including military competitions at state and regional levels. Even with that experience, I required significant practice to achieve consistent results at extended range under field conditions. His comment prompted nods from several other Marines who understood the mathematical precision required for successful long-range marksmanship. Private Williams positioned himself near the spotting scope, clearly anticipating the opportunity to observe what he expected would be a series of misses that would conclude this demonstration quickly. Commander Reyes walked over to examine Delacroix's rifle setup, his experienced eye noting details that seemed surprisingly professional. "Your equipment appears properly configured," he admitted, though his tone suggested this observation only made her confidence more puzzling. However, proper equipment means nothing without the experience to use it effectively under challenging conditions. The morning sun continued climbing, creating heat shimmer that would add another variable to an already difficult shooting scenario. Staff Sergeant Nakamura consulted his watch again, clearly aware that this confrontation was consuming valuable training time that other Marines needed for their own qualification requirements. Delacroix completed her position adjustments and looked toward the distant targets, her expression displaying a focus that seemed oddly intense for someone supposedly attempting something beyond her capabilities. The silence that had settled over the range carried a tension that made clear everyone present understood they were about to witness something significant. Though most expected it would be a demonstration of overconfidence meeting reality rather than any display of actual shooting ability. A new voice joined the conversation as Gunnery Sergeant Hawkins approached from the administrative building, drawn by the unusual gathering of Marines around a single shooting position. "What exactly is happening here, Commander?" he asked, his tone carrying the authority of someone accustomed to maintaining training schedules and proper protocols. Commander Reyes gestured toward Delacroix, who remained focused on her rifle preparation despite the growing audience. "Recruit Delacroix has requested permission to attempt our 1,000-meter qualification on her first day, claiming training from her father that she believes prepares her for elite-level marksmanship standards." Hawkins raised his eyebrows, his expression shifting through surprise towards something approaching disbelief. "Her father," he repeated, exchanging a meaningful glance with Staff Sergeant Nakamura. "Gunnery Sergeant, I have been training Marines for 15 years. Most recruits require months of progressive instruction before attempting extended range work, even with proper military instruction." "Exactly my concern," Reyes replied, his voice carrying across the range to ensure that nearby Marines understood the educational value of the situation. "We have established protocols for a reason. Progressive skill building, documented competency levels, supervised advancement through increasingly challenging standards." Corporal Chun approached the group, carrying additional ammunition that clinked softly in his equipment bag. "Sir, if I may share some perspective, I qualified expert marksman in boot camp and still required additional training before attempting 1,000-meter shots. Even with proper instruction, the mathematical calculations for wind drift and bullet drop at that distance require significant practice to master." Private Williams nodded agreement, positioning himself where he could observe both the shooting position and the target area through his own scope. The environmental factors alone make this extremely challenging. Variable winds, heat shimmer beginning to affect visibility, atmospheric pressure changes throughout the morning. Delacroix adjusted her scope minutely, her movements displaying a precision that seemed oddly confident for someone facing such overwhelming skepticism from experienced Marines. The consistency of her equipment handling had begun to draw subtle attention from several observers, though none appeared willing to revise their expectations about the outcome. Gunnery Sergeant Hawkins consulted his training roster, clearly concerned about the time this demonstration was consuming. "Commander, we have 12 Marines scheduled for qualification runs this morning, plus equipment maintenance and safety briefings. Perhaps we should establish some preliminary standards before committing to extended evaluation." Staff Sergeant Nakamura stepped forward, his diplomatic tone suggesting he had found what he hoped would be a reasonable compromise. "Recruit Delacroix, what if we start with our standard 600-meter challenge? That would allow you to demonstrate your capabilities while providing a foundation for potential advancement to longer distances." The suggestion drew immediate reactions from the assembled Marines. Sergeant Torres shook his head, his expression making clear that he considered even the reduced distance to be overly generous for someone with unverified training. Private Williams exchanged glances with his partner, both of them clearly expecting that any reasonable evaluation would quickly expose the gap between claimed ability and actual performance. Commander Reyes held up one hand, his attention remaining focused on Delacroix. No, let her attempt what she requested. Sometimes the most effective education comes from allowing overconfidence to meet reality under control conditions. His voice carried the tone of someone who had witnessed numerous similar situations throughout his military career. The range officer approached with updated weather readings, his equipment confirming that conditions were becoming increasingly challenging. Wind speed holding at 18 miles per hour, gusting to 24. Heat shimmer becoming noticeable at extended distances. Atmospheric pressure continuing to drop gradually. These conditions are exactly why we normally require extensive preparation before attempting 1,000-meter shots, Hawkins observed, his comment directed toward Delacroix, but clearly intended for the educational benefit of all Marines present. Environmental factors that seem minor at close range become critical variables at extended distances. Delacroix looked up from her rifle scope, meeting the gunnery sergeant's gaze with an expression that somehow managed to convey both respect for his experience and unwavering confidence in her own preparation. I understand the challenges, gunnery sergeant. I also understand that you have legitimate concerns about my claim qualifications. Her response prompted subtle shifts in posture among several Marines who had expected either defensive arguments or nervous backtracking when faced with mounting professional skepticism. Instead, her calm acknowledgement of their concerns while maintaining her position seemed to add another layer of complexity to what most had assumed would be a straightforward demonstration of overreach meeting reality. The morning sun climbed higher, casting sharper shadows across the range and highlighting the tension that had transformed a routine training session into something approaching a formal evaluation with an audience of skeptical professionals prepared to witness an educational moment about the importance of proper preparation and realistic self-assessment. The distinctive sound of boots on gravel announced the arrival of Captain Morrison from the command building, his presence immediately shifting the dynamics of what had become an increasingly public evaluation. Commander Reyes, I understand we have a situation developing on the range that requires command attention, Morrison said, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to resolving training complications quickly and decisively. Sir, Recruit Delacroix has requested permission to attempt 1,000-meter qualification despite having no documented advanced marksmanship training beyond claimed instruction from her father, Reyes explained, his tone making clear that he considered this request to be educationally valuable, but practically unrealistic. Captain Morrison studied Delacroix's position, noting the professional setup and confident posture that seemed inconsistent with typical recruit behavior when facing command scrutiny. Her equipment handling appeared remarkably assured for someone supposedly attempting something beyond her preparation level. Yet her personnel file contained no indicators of advanced military training or competitive shooting experience. Recruit, what specific training did your father provide that leads you to believe you can succeed where Marines with combat experience often struggle? Morrison asked, his question carrying both genuine curiosity and obvious skepticism about any answer she might provide. He taught me to read environmental conditions and adjust for multiple variables simultaneously, Sir Delacroix replied, her voice maintaining the same steady confidence that had characterized her responses throughout the morning's increasingly intense questioning. We practiced extensively at various distances under different weather conditions and time constraints. Gunnery Sergeant Hawkins stepped forward, clearly hoping to provide context that would help resolve what was becoming a significant disruption to scheduled training activities. Captain, 1,000-meter shots require mathematical precision that typically takes months to develop. Wind calculations, trajectory compensation, atmospheric pressure adjustments. Most Marines need substantial supervised practice before attempting these distances. The assessment prompted nods from several experienced marksmen who understood the complexity involved in consistent long-range accuracy. Corporal Chun adjusted his own equipment while observing Delacroix's preparation, his expression reflecting growing curiosity about the confidence she maintained despite facing mounting professional skepticism. Private Williams positioned himself near the spotting equipment, clearly anticipating the opportunity to observe what he expected would be a series of misses that would conclude this demonstration efficiently. His partner leaned against nearby equipment, both of them settling in to watch what they assumed would be a brief but educational lesson about realistic self-assessment. Captain Morrison consulted his watch, obviously concerned about the time this evaluation was consuming during a scheduled training period. Commander Reyes, what is your assessment of allowing this attempt to proceed? Do we risk valuable training time for other Marines? Or does this situation provide educational value that justifies the disruption? Sir, I believe allowing recruit Delacroix to attempt her requested challenge will provide an excellent demonstration about the importance of proper preparation and realistic goal setting, Reyes replied, his tone making clear that he expected this lesson to benefit multiple Marines simultaneously. The range officer approached with additional weather updates that emphasized the increasing difficulty of shooting conditions. Wind patterns becoming more variable, sir. Current readings show gusts reaching 26 miles per hour with unpredictable direction changes. Heat shimmer now significantly affecting target visibility at extended distances. Staff Sergeant Nakamura reviewed his training schedule again, clearly calculating the time requirements for completing all scheduled qualifications if this demonstration continued much longer. Captain, we have qualification runs planned for 12 Marines today, plus equipment maintenance and safety protocol reviews. Extended evaluation could impact completion of required training objectives. Morrison nodded, understanding the scheduling concerns while recognizing that the situation had evolved beyond simple training management. This has become a question of maintaining proper standards while providing appropriate learning opportunities, he observed, his comment directed toward the growing audience of Marines who had gathered to witness what most expected would be a demonstration of overconfidence meeting professional reality. Sergeant Torres moved closer to the observation area, his expression reflecting the mixture of professional curiosity and anticipated vindication that had settled over most of the experienced Marines present. Sir, if I may, most recruits who attempt challenges beyond their preparation level learn valuable lessons about the importance of progressive skill development and proper respect for advanced techniques. Delacroix completed her final position adjustments, her movements displaying the same methodical precision that had characterized her preparation throughout the morning's confrontations. The consistency of her equipment handling continued to draw subtle attention from observers, though most remained convinced that technical familiarity could not substitute for the extensive experience required for 1,000-meter accuracy under challenging field conditions. The morning sun reached its peak angle, creating optimal lighting conditions while simultaneously increasing heat shimmer effects that would complicate accurate target acquisition at extended distances, adding another variable to what had already become a comprehensive test of claimed capabilities against professional skepticism and environmental challenges. The sound of additional vehicles arriving at the range complex drew attention as Major Bradley emerged from a staff car, accompanied by two senior NCOs who had apparently been summoned to observe what had become an increasingly significant training event. Captain Morrison, I received reports about an unusual situation developing on Range 7 that requires command oversight, Bradley announced, his presence immediately elevating the stakes of what had begun as a routine qualification attempt. Sir, we have a recruit requesting 1,000-meter qualification based solely on claimed civilian training from her father, Morrison explained, his voice carrying the weight of someone who understood that this situation had evolved beyond normal training parameters and now required careful handling to maintain both standards and educational value. Major Bradley studied the assembled group of Marines, noting the mixture of professional curiosity and obvious skepticism that characterized most of the observers. His experienced eye immediately recognized the signs of a situation where overconfidence was about to encounter military reality under conditions that would provide lasting educational value for multiple personnel. Recruit Delacroix, the major said, approaching her position with the measured stride of someone accustomed to evaluating Marines under pressure. I understand you believe your preparation qualifies you for elite-level marksmanship challenges. Explain to me why you think civilian instruction, regardless of quality, provides adequate foundation for military precision shooting standards. Sir, my training emphasized consistency under varying conditions and rapid adaptation to environmental changes, Delacroix replied, her voice maintaining remarkable steadiness despite facing what had become a formidable assembly of senior military personnel expressing collective doubt about her claimed capabilities. The response prompted an exchange of glances among the senior NCOs who had accompanied Major Bradley. Master Sergeant Collins stepped forward, his expression reflecting 26 years of experience training Marines in advanced marksmanship techniques. Major, with respect, civilian instruction typically focuses on hunting accuracy under favorable conditions. Military shooting requires performance under stress, time constraints, and adverse circumstances that recreational training rarely addresses. Gunnery Sergeant Hawkins nodded agreement, consulting his training records to provide additional context. Sir, our qualification standards exist because 1,000-meter accuracy requires mathematical precision that develops through extensive supervised practice. Even Marines with documented combat experience require significant preparation before attempting these distances consistently. The range officer approached with updated environmental readings that emphasized the mounting challenges facing any marksmanship attempt. Current conditions showing sustained winds at 22 miles per hour, gusting to 28. Atmospheric pressure has dropped significantly, and heat distortion is now affecting visibility at all extended ranges. Private Williams positioned himself at the primary spotting scope, clearly anticipating the opportunity to observe what everyone expected would be a series of instructive misses. His equipment partner adjusted the secondary observation position, both of them prepared to document the educational demonstration they assumed was about to unfold. Major Bradley walked the length of the 1,000-meter range, using the time to assess conditions while allowing the assembled Marines to fully appreciate the difficulty of the challenge Delacroix had requested. The targets appeared as small dark squares against the distant hillside, barely visible even with magnification and made more challenging by the heat shimmer that distorted the view. Sergeant Torres approached Captain Morrison, his voice low but audible to nearby Marines. Sir, I have been shooting competitively for 12 years, including national-level competitions. Under these conditions, with these wind patterns, even experienced marksmen would struggle to achieve consistent accuracy. For someone with unverified training to attempt this seems unrealistic. Commander Reyes moved to a position where he could observe both Delacroix's shooting stance and the reactions of senior command personnel. Major, I believe this situation provides an excellent opportunity to demonstrate the importance of proper preparation and realistic self-assessment. Sometimes, allowing overconfidence to encounter reality provides the most effective education. The assessment drew nods from multiple Marines who understood they were witnessing more than a simple qualification attempt. This had become a comprehensive evaluation of claimed capability against professional standards, conducted under optimal conditions for learning about the relationship between confidence and competence. Staff Sergeant Nakamura checked his equipment one final time, clearly recognizing that normal training schedules had been suspended in favor of what senior command considered a valuable teaching moment. The assembled Marines represented different experience levels and specialties, all united in their expectation that they were about to witness a demonstration of why military standards required documented preparation and progressive skill development. Delacroix settled into her final shooting position, her movements displaying the same confident precision that had characterized her preparation throughout the morning's increasingly intense scrutiny. The silence that descended over the range carried a tension that made clear everyone present understood they were witnessing something significant, though most remained convinced it would be an educational demonstration of overreach rather than any display of actual extraordinary capability. The arrival of Colonel Richardson in his command vehicle brought an immediate hush to the assembled Marines as the highest-ranking officer on base stepped out to personally observe what had become an unprecedented training situation. Major Bradley, I understand we have a recruit attempting to demonstrate capabilities that significantly exceed documented training levels, Richardson said, his presence transforming what had been a teaching moment into something approaching an official evaluation. Sir, Recruit Delacroix has requested 1,000-meter qualification based on civilian instruction she claims prepares her for elite marksmanship standards, Bradley reported, his tone carefully neutral, while making clear that command consensus remains skeptical about the realistic prospects for success under current conditions. Colonel Richardson approached Delacroix's position, his experienced gaze immediately noting details about her equipment setup and shooting stance that seemed oddly professional for someone supposedly attempting something beyond her preparation. The consistency of her rifle handling and position discipline appeared remarkably advanced, yet her personnel records contained no indicators of formal military training or competitive shooting background. Recruit, I have been observing Marine marksmanship for 28 years, Richardson said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had witnessed every conceivable variation of confidence meeting reality. I have seen combat veterans struggle with 1,000-meter shots under ideal conditions. I have watched competition shooters require multiple attempts to achieve accuracy at these distances, even with perfect equipment and unlimited time. The colonel gestured toward the distant targets, barely visible through the heat shimmer and atmospheric distortion that had worsened throughout the morning. What you are attempting requires mathematical precision, environmental compensation, and technical consistency that typically develops through months of supervised military instruction. Explain to me why you believe your preparation qualifies you for this level of challenge. Sir, my father emphasized that shooting is primarily mental discipline combined with technical fundamentals, Delacroix replied, her voice maintaining the same steady confidence that had characterized her responses despite facing what had become an intimidating assembly of senior military leadership expressing collective skepticism. Master Sergeant Collins stepped forward, clearly feeling obligated to provide professional context for the colonel's assessment. Sir, mental discipline is certainly important, but 1,000-meter accuracy requires specific technical skills that develop through extensive practice. Wind reading, trajectory calculation, atmospheric compensation. These are learned abilities that require supervised development and documented progression. The range officer approached with final environmental readings that emphasized the mounting difficulty of current shooting conditions. Colonel, winds now sustained at 24 miles per hour with gusts reaching 31. Visibility significantly impacted by heat distortion and atmospheric pressure continuing to drop throughout the morning evaluation period. Private Williams adjusted the spotting scope one final time, his expression reflecting the mixture of professional curiosity and anticipated vindication shared by most Marines present. His equipment partner positioned recording materials to document what everyone expected would be an instructive series of misses that would provide lasting educational value about realistic goal setting. Sergeant Torres approached Gunnery Sergeant Hawkins, his voice carrying the certainty of someone who had witnessed similar situations throughout his military career. This is exactly why we have progressive qualification standards, he observed quietly. Overconfidence needs to encounter reality under controlled conditions where failure provides education rather than endangering missions or personnel. Colonel Richardson walked the length of the firing line, using the inspection time to allow assembled Marines to fully appreciate both the technical difficulty of the attempted shot and the professional consensus about realistic expectations. The silence that accompanied his movement carried a tension that made clear everyone understood they were witnessing a significant moment in military training protocol. Commander Reyes positioned himself where he could observe both the shooting position and senior command reactions. Colonel, this situation demonstrates why proper preparation and documented competency remain essential for maintaining standards. Sometimes, allowing unrealistic confidence to meet professional evaluation provides the most effective instruction about military requirements. Staff Sergeant Nakamura consulted his training schedule one final time, recognizing that normal qualification procedures had been completely suspended in favor of what senior leadership considered a comprehensive teaching opportunity. The assembled personnel represented multiple specialties and experience levels, all united in their expectation of witnessing an educational demonstration. Captain Morrison approached the colonel with final preparations for what had become an official evaluation rather than routine training. "Sir, we have full documentation procedures in place and adequate safety protocols established. All observers are positioned appropriately, and equipment is calibrated for accurate assessment of results." The morning sun reached its peak intensity, creating optimal lighting conditions while simultaneously maximizing heat shimmer effects that would significantly complicate target acquisition at extended distances. Environmental factors had aligned to create maximum difficulty for any marksmanship attempt, adding natural obstacles to what had already become a comprehensive test of claimed capability against overwhelming professional skepticism. Delacroix completed her final position adjustments under the direct observation of senior command personnel, her movements continuing to display remarkable confidence despite facing the most intimidating assembly of military authority and expertise that any recruit could reasonably expect to encounter during training evaluation. The range fell into absolute silence as Delacroix settled behind her rifle, the weight of senior command attention creating an atmosphere that would have intimidated even experienced Marines attempting routine qualifications. Colonel Richardson positioned himself at the primary observation point, his presence ensuring that whatever happened next would carry official significance far beyond normal training evaluation. "She will not even come close," Private Williams whispered to his partner, the words barely audible but carrying clearly in the hushed environment. 20 Marines are watching this, and she's about to learn why we have qualification standards that require documented preparation and progressive skill development. Commander Reyes checked his stopwatch, establishing official timing protocols for what had become a formal demonstration rather than routine training. The assembled senior NCOs positioned themselves at various observation points, their collective experience representing decades of military marksmanship expertise focused on evaluating one recruit's extraordinary claim. Master Sergeant Collins adjusted the primary spotting scope, his movements reflecting the professional precision of someone preparing to document what he expected would be an educational series of misses. The mathematical requirements for 1,000-meter accuracy under current conditions approached the limits of human capability even with optimal preparation and experience. Delacroix controlled her breathing with rhythmic precision that seemed oddly advanced for someone supposedly learning elite techniques. Her rifle position displayed stability and technical correctness that several Marines found noteworthy, though most remained convinced that proper form could not compensate for lack of extensive practical experience under challenging conditions. The wind gauge fluctuated between readings that would challenge even competition-level marksmen, creating variables that required constant mental calculation and immediate adjustment. Heat shimmer distorted the distant targets enough to make precise aiming difficult even with high-quality optics and optimal lighting conditions. Gunnery Sergeant Hawkins consulted his training manual, reviewing the specific requirements for 1,000-meter qualification that had been established through years of practical experience with Marine capabilities. The standards existed because consistent accuracy at extended range required skills that developed only through supervised practice and documented progression through increasingly difficult challenges. Major Bradley positioned himself where he could observe both the shooting position and the reactions of assembled personnel. This evaluation had evolved beyond simple qualification assessment into something approaching a comprehensive test of military training philosophy against individual confidence and claim preparation. Staff Sergeant Nakamura recorded environmental conditions for official documentation, noting wind speed, atmospheric pressure, temperature, and visibility factors that would provide context for whatever results emerged from this unprecedented demonstration. The data would become part of training records regardless of outcome. Sergeant Torres moved closer to the observation area, his expression reflecting the professional curiosity shared by most experienced Marines present. The technical difficulty of achieving accuracy under current conditions seemed to guarantee that this would become an excellent teaching moment about realistic self-assessment and proper respect for advanced military skills. Captain Morrison checked communication equipment, ensuring that range safety protocols remained in effect despite the unusual nature of this evaluation. The assembled senior leadership represented significant command investment in what had become a formal assessment of individual capability against established military standards. Private Williams adjusted the secondary spotting scope, positioning himself to provide backup observation of target impact results. His equipment partner prepared documentation materials, both of them clearly anticipating the opportunity to record what they expected would be conclusive evidence about the relationship between confidence and competence. The range officer provided final environmental updates that emphasized the mounting challenge facing any marksmanship attempt. Sustained winds at 26 miles per hour, gusting to 33. Maximum heat distortion affecting target visibility. Atmospheric conditions approaching the limits for accurate long-range shooting even under ideal circumstances. Colonel Richardson raised his binoculars, focusing on the distant target area while maintaining awareness of the shooting position where Delacroix had achieved what appeared to be perfect rifle stability. The silence that surrounded her final preparations carried a tension that made clear everyone present understood they were witnessing a moment that would provide lasting lessons about military training standards. Master Sergeant Collins positioned himself at the official observation point, his decades of experience preparing him to evaluate whatever results emerged from this comprehensive test of claimed capability against professional skepticism. The assembled Marines represented multiple specialties and experience levels, all united in their expectation of witnessing an educational demonstration about the importance of proper preparation and realistic goal setting in military training environments. Delacroix's finger found the trigger with surgical precision, her breathing controlled to the exact moment between heartbeats that every elite marksman recognizes as the window for perfect accuracy. The rifle's report echoed across the range like thunder, the sound sharp and definitive in the morning air that had been silent with anticipation for what felt like an eternity. For 3 seconds that seemed to stretch into minutes, absolute silence blanketed the entire range complex. Every Marine present held their breath, waiting for the spotter's call that would either vindicate their professional skepticism or force them to recalibrate everything they believed about training, preparation, and the relationship between confidence and capability. Hit! Master Sergeant Collins called from the spotting scope, his voice cracking slightly on the single word. Center mass. Perfect placement. The silence that followed his announcement carried a different quality entirely, heavy with disbelief and the sudden recognition that something extraordinary had just occurred under the direct observation of senior military leadership. Private Williams blinked hard and looked through his scope again, as if expecting the target to somehow change what his equipment was clearly showing. Colonel Richardson lowered his binoculars slowly, his expression cycling through surprise towards something approaching professional awe. In 28 years of military service, he had witnessed exceptional marksmanship, but never under conditions that combined maximum environmental difficulty with the pressure of proving capability to overwhelming skepticism from experienced personnel. Commander Reyes approached the spotting position, clearly needing to verify the results personally before accepting what seemed impossible based on documented training levels. The target showed unmistakable evidence of precise center impact, achieved under wind conditions that would challenge competition-level marksmen with years of documented experience. That is not possible, Private Williams said quietly, his voice carrying the confusion of someone whose fundamental understanding of skill development had just encountered contradictory evidence. The mathematical precision required for that shot under these conditions should require months of supervised practice and documented progression through increasingly difficult challenges. Major Bradley moved to the secondary observation position, using additional equipment to confirm what Master Sergeant Collins had reported. The results remained consistent regardless of which spotting scope provided the assessment. Center mass impact at 1,000 meters under adverse conditions that had worsened throughout the morning evaluation period. Gunnery Sergeant Hawkins consulted his training manual again, as if the established qualification standards might somehow explain what had just occurred in defiance of normal expectations about preparation requirements and capability development. The documentation provided no precedent for this level of performance from someone with unverified civilian training. Sergeant Torres walked closer to Delacroix's position, studying her rifle setup and shooting stance with renewed attention to details that had seemed merely professional before, but now appeared to represent something significantly more advanced than basic instruction could provide. Her equipment handling displayed familiarity that suggested extensive experience beyond normal recreational shooting. Staff Sergeant Nakamura recorded the official results with careful notation of environmental conditions, ensuring that documentation would reflect both the extraordinary nature of the achievement and the challenging circumstances under which it had been accomplished. The data would require explanation that existing training philosophy struggled to provide. Captain Morrison approached Colonel Richardson, clearly recognizing that this situation had evolved beyond routine evaluation into something that would require command decisions about how to process results that contradicted established understanding of skill development and preparation requirements. The range officer confirmed wind readings one final time, documenting that conditions had actually worsened during the shooting sequence rather than improving. Sustained winds at 27 miles per hour with gusts reaching 34, combined with maximum heat distortion and continued atmospheric pressure changes that should have made accurate shooting nearly impossible. Master Sergeant Collins remained at the spotting scope, continuing to verify results that seemed to defy logical explanation based on documented training levels. The target impact remained unmistakably precise, achieved through technical execution that suggested preparation far beyond what civilian instruction should provide. Corporal Chun moved closer to observe Delacroix's post-shot procedures, noting details about her rifle handling and equipment management that displayed professional competency inconsistent with claimed training background. Her movements suggested familiarity with advanced techniques that required extensive supervised development. The silence stretched until Private Williams finally voiced what multiple Marines were thinking, but none had been willing to articulate. How is that even possible with civilian training? The question hung in the air without answer, challenging assumptions that had seemed unquestionable minutes earlier. Delacroix secured her rifle with the same methodical precision that had characterized her entire performance, seemingly unaffected by the stunned reactions surrounding her position. Her calm demeanor suggested that extraordinary accuracy under maximum pressure represented normal performance, rather than exceptional achievement requiring explanation or justification. Colonel Richardson approached Delacroix's position with measured steps that reflected his struggle to process what had just occurred under direct observation of senior command personnel. "Recruit, that was extraordinary marksmanship under conditions that would challenge our most experienced marksmen. I need you to explain how civilian training produced that level of capability." "Sir, my father was very thorough in his instruction," Delacroix replied, her voice maintaining the same steady composure that had characterized her responses throughout the morning's evaluation. He emphasized that shooting is fundamentally about consistency and adaptation to environmental variables rather than simply following prescribed techniques. Commander Reyes studied the target through high-powered optics, confirming repeatedly that the impact showed precise center mass placement achieved under wind conditions that had defeated experienced Marines in previous evaluations. The mathematical precision required for that shot exceeded normal expectations for recreational training, regardless of quality or duration. Major Bradley approached Master Sergeant Collins at the spotting position, clearly needing additional verification of results that seemed to contradict established understanding of skill development. "Sergeant, confirm your assessment one more time." That impact pattern represents what level of accuracy under current environmental conditions. Sir, center mass placement with precision that meets our highest marksmanship standards, Collins replied, his voice carrying the bewilderment of someone whose professional experience provided no framework for explaining what he had just observed. Under these wind conditions, that shot represents performance at the extreme upper range of human capability. Private Williams remained at his observation position, continuing to study the target results through his scope as if repeated examination might somehow alter what his equipment clearly showed. His partner leaned against nearby gear, both of them struggling to reconcile documented evidence with their fundamental understanding of training requirements and capability development. Gunnery Sergeant Hawkins consulted his qualification records, searching for any precedent that might explain performance levels that seemed to exceed what systematic military instruction typically produced. The documentation provided no examples of recruits achieving elite-level accuracy without extensive supervised progression through increasingly difficult challenges. Staff Sergeant Nakamura completed his official documentation, carefully recording environmental conditions and equipment specifications that would provide context for results requiring explanation beyond normal training protocols. The data confirmed that shooting conditions have been optimal for demonstrating the relationship between preparation and performance under pressure. Sergeant Torres approached Delacroix with renewed attention to details about her equipment setup and rifle handling that had seemed merely competent before, but now appeared to represent something significantly more advanced than basic civilian instruction should provide. Her technical familiarity suggested experience that extended far beyond recreational shooting. Captain Morrison moved between observation positions, using multiple vantage points to confirm that the extraordinary results remained consistent regardless of assessment method or equipment used for verification. The target impact provided undeniable evidence of precision that challenged assumptions about training requirements for elite marksmanship. The range officer documented final environmental readings for official records, confirming that wind conditions had actually intensified during the shooting sequence rather than improving to favor accurate placement. Sustained winds at 28 miles per hour with gusts reaching 36, combined with continued atmospheric disturbance and heat distortion effects. Corporal Chun studied Delacroix's post-shot procedures with professional curiosity about techniques that seemed to reflect extensive experience with precision shooting under demanding conditions. Her movements displayed confidence and familiarity that suggested preparation extending significantly beyond what most civilian instruction could provide. Master Sergeant Collins approached Colonel Richardson with expression reflecting profound confusion about how to process results that seemed to defy logical explanation based on documented training background. Sir, I have been evaluating Marine marksmanship for 18 years. What we just witnessed exceeds performance standards that typically require months of specialized instruction. The assembled Marines continued their stunned observation of both the target results and Delacroix herself, struggling to understand how someone with claimed civilian training had achieved accuracy that challenged their most experienced marksmen under conditions specifically designed to test maximum capability under pressure. Private Williams finally voiced the question that multiple personnel had been considering, but none had articulated clearly. Ma'am, what kind of civilian instruction produces that level of precision under these conditions? Because what we just saw suggests preparation that goes significantly beyond normal recreational shooting, regardless of quality or duration. Delacroix secured her equipment with continued methodical precision, her calm demeanor suggesting that extraordinary performance under maximum scrutiny represented routine capability rather than exceptional achievement, requiring special explanation or justification to skeptical professional observers who had expected completely different results from this comprehensive evaluation. Colonel Richardson's expression shifted from confusion towards something approaching recognition as he studied Delacroix more carefully, noting subtle details about her bearing and equipment handling that seemed oddly familiar despite her claimed civilian background. Recruit, I need you to be more specific about your father's qualifications as an instructor. What was his military background before he began teaching you precision shooting? Delacroix met the colonel's gaze directly, her composure suggesting she had been expecting this question throughout the morning's evaluation. Sir, my father is Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Delacroix, retired Marine Corps Scout Sniper with 3 combat deployments and instructor certification at the Scout Sniper School. The silence that followed her revelation carried a completely different quality than the stunned quiet after her extraordinary shot. Master Sergeant Collins straightened visibly, his expression cycling through surprise towards something approaching awe. Marcus Delacroix trained you? He asked quietly, his voice carrying the reverence reserved for legendary figures in military marksmanship. Commander Reyes lowered his binoculars slowly, his professional skepticism replaced by dawning comprehension of why civilian training had produced results that exceeded normal military standards. Gunnery Sergeant Delacroix was the senior instructor when I went through Scout Sniper School in 2008. His reputation for developing elite marksmen was legendary throughout the Marine Corps. Major Bradley approached their group with renewed attention to details about Delacroix's preparation and performance that now made perfect sense within the context of a revealed training background. Your father trained some of the finest marksmen in Marine Corps history. His instruction methods were considered the gold standard for developing precision shooting capability under adverse conditions. Private Williams and his partner exchanged glances that reflected their sudden understanding of why their fundamental assumptions about training requirements had been completely wrong. Gunnery Sergeant Delacroix was not civilian instruction, one whispered to the other. That was elite military training from one of the best instructors in Marine Corps history. Gunnery Sergeant Hawkins consulted his training manual with renewed perspective, now understanding that the extraordinary performance they had witnessed represented the results of instruction from someone whose methods had produced legendary marksmen throughout multiple decades of military service. The qualification standards had been met by someone trained by the Marine who helped establish those very standards. Staff Sergeant Nakamura updated his official documentation to include the newly revealed training background, recognizing that the morning's evaluation had demonstrated the effectiveness of elite instruction rather than challenging established military training philosophy. The results now made complete sense within proper context. Sergeant Torres approached Delacroix with expression reflecting newfound respect for capabilities that had been developed through instruction from one of the Marine Corps' most respected marksmanship experts. Ma'am, your father's reputation preceded him throughout the sniper community. Marines still study his teaching methods and environmental adaptation techniques. Captain Morrison moved closer to observe Delacroix's equipment setup with professional curiosity about techniques that now clearly represented the application of advanced military instruction rather than civilian recreation. Her rifle handling reflected training from someone who had developed the methods used to instruct Marine Corps Scout snipers. The range officer approached Colonel Richardson with final environmental documentation that now provided context for understanding how elite instruction had enabled extraordinary performance under conditions that would challenge any marksman. The wind readings and atmospheric data confirmed that the shot had been achieved under maximum difficulty circumstances. Corporal Chun studied Delacroix's shooting position with renewed appreciation for technical elements that reflected instruction from someone whose methods had been proven effective through decades of developing elite military marksmen. Her stance and equipment management displayed precision that could only result from training by a master instructor. Master Sergeant Collins approached their group with expression reflecting professional admiration for results that now made perfect sense given the revealed training background. Sir, Gunnery Sergeant Delacroix, trained marksman who went on to set records at competitions throughout the military. His instruction methods produced some of the finest shots in Marine Corps history. Colonel Richardson nodded slowly, his understanding of the morning's events completely transformed by the revelation of Delacroix's actual training background. Your father earned his reputation by developing Marines who could perform under exactly these kinds of conditions. What we witness today demonstrates the effectiveness of his instruction methods applied under pressure. The assembled Marines continued processing the implications of learning that extraordinary civilian training had actually been elite military instruction from one of the Marine Corps' most legendary marksmanship experts, whose methods had influenced generations of scout snipers and precision shooting specialists throughout multiple decades of distinguished service. Colonel Richardson extended his hand toward Delacroix with the formal respect reserved for Marines who had demonstrated exceptional capability under pressure. Recruit Delacroix, you have my apologies for the skepticism you've faced this morning. Your performance today honors both your training and your father's legendary instruction methods. Sir, no apology is necessary, Delacroix replied, accepting the handshake with quiet dignity. You maintained proper standards and asked appropriate questions about my qualifications. That is exactly what professional leadership should do when evaluating claim capabilities. Commander Reyes approached their position with expression reflecting complete transformation from his earlier skepticism toward genuine professional admiration. Marines, what we witnessed today demonstrates why the reputation of Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Delacroix remains legendary throughout the sniper community. His daughter has clearly inherited both his precision and his dedication to excellence under pressure. Major Bradley consulted with Master Sergeant Collins about immediate qualification processing, recognizing that the morning's evaluation had produced results requiring official documentation and potential advancement recommendations. The extraordinary performance under maximum difficulty conditions exceeded standard requirements by margins that demanded command attention and appropriate recognition. Private Williams approached Delacroix with expression reflecting his struggle to process how completely wrong his assumptions had been about her capabilities and training background. Ma'am, I owe you an apology for my skepticism. What you accomplished today under those conditions was extraordinary marksmanship that few Marines could match. Staff Sergeant Nakamura completed final documentation that would provide permanent record of performance levels that had exceeded established qualification standards under environmental conditions that challenged even experienced marksmen. The official records would reflect both the achievement and the revealed training background that explained such exceptional results. Gunnery Sergeant Hawkins approached their group with professional curiosity about training methods that had produced capabilities exceeding normal military instruction standards. Ma'am, would you be willing to share some of your father's environmental adaptation techniques with our advanced marksmanship instructors? His methods could benefit current training programs. Sergeant Torres moved closer to observe equipment details that now made complete sense within the context of instruction from one of the Marine Corps' most respected marksmanship experts. The rifle setup and accessories reflected advanced understanding that could only result from training by someone whose methods had influenced generations of elite marksmen. Captain Morrison approached Colonel Richardson with recommendations for immediate processing of qualification results that had exceeded all standard requirements under maximum difficulty conditions. Sir, these results warrant consideration for advanced placement in our precision shooting programs and potential instructor development opportunities. The range officer completed environmental documentation that would provide context for understanding how elite training had enabled extraordinary performance under conditions specifically designed to test maximum capability. The data confirmed that shooting circumstances had been optimal for demonstrating the relationship between preparation and performance under extreme pressure. Corporal Chun studied Delacroix's post-qualification procedures with professional appreciation for techniques that reflected instruction from a master marksman whose reputation had influenced Marine Corps training philosophy. Her equipment management and rifle handling displayed precision that honored her father's legendary teaching methods. Master Sergeant Collins approached their position with expression reflecting profound respect for capabilities that now made perfect sense given the revealed training background. Ma'am, your father trained some of the finest marksmen I have ever had the privilege to serve alongside. You have clearly absorbed his instruction and applied it with exceptional skill. If this story of proving yourself against overwhelming doubt resonated with you, Please drop a comment and let us know your favorite moment or character, or share if you have witnessed similar displays of quiet confidence that silence skeptics in your own experience. Colonel Richardson addressed the assembled Marines with tone reflecting the educational value of the morning's events. This evaluation demonstrates why we maintain rigorous standards while remaining open to exceptional capability regardless of its source. Recruit Delacroix earned our respect through performance rather than credentials, which represents the highest Marine Corps tradition. Private Williams and his partner approached Delacroix with expressions reflecting newfound appreciation for capabilities they had completely underestimated. "Ma'am, watching you perform under that pressure while maintaining perfect composure taught us valuable lessons about both marksmanship and professional bearing under scrutiny." The morning sun reached its peak as the assembled Marines began processing the implications of witnessing extraordinary capability revealed through proper evaluation rather than assumed through documentation. The range slowly returned to normal training activities, but the memory of perfect precision under maximum doubt would influence their understanding of preparation, capability, and the importance of maintaining both standards and respect for proven performance.